Hey, good morning. Have you ever heard the expression when the wheels fall off? It's kind of a fun expression to use to describe things when things just aren't going quite right or things have taken a turn for the worse. Right now I'm driving. I just dropped my kids off at school. I had hoped to make this video last night, but the reality is that they being my children, used my iPad to the point where it was dead. And despite me constantly reminding them, admonishing them to plug it in while they're using it. Children's brains don't really care sometimes. And so when I went to use my iPad, it was completely dead. It had been charging for a while, and I checked it again, and the charging base wasn't working. So my iPad is currently charging for making further video content, but I thought, why not make a video while I'm driving? I'm just here by myself. I am hands-free. See, shouldn't do that because I am driving. But I am hands-free, so this is just me talking in the car to you. And I wanted to talk about the wheels falling off. And the wheels falling off is kind of an interesting analogy. Have you ever had wheels fall off? Like, where does this actually come from? Now, there are lots of examples of wheels falling off, but many of us may not have that experience. So let me tell you a story. On June 24th of this year, maybe it was June 25th. Anyway, it was the end of June. It was a good day because I had just gone to my lawyer's office to get the check for the sale of my home. This will probably be one of the biggest checks I ever cash in my life until I sell another home. And that money was allocated towards renovations, towards paying off this truck, towards paying off debts, etc. So I was really excited about having this fantastic check in my hands. And I was driving down the street in Waterloo, known as University Ave, and suddenly my truck dropped. And I noticed as I looked out that my wheel fell off. I could see it bouncing. And I said to my partner, Abby, I said, my wheel just came off. And then we saw my wheel beside us. And it bounced. And it bounced. And it bounced right into a Grand River Transit bus station. And it shattered the bus station. Like the glass exploded everywhere. Now the good news is there was no one in that bus station, that bus stop. The wheel proceeded to bounce down University Ave, narrowly missing a GO bus, just missing a few cars, and thankfully missing no pedestrians because there happened to be no one on the street, in part because of COVID, right? University of Waterloo is a co-op campus, usually pretty busy, but it's been a little bit more subdued of late. And my tire bounced probably 300 meters down the road, maybe 250. But I had to walk a ways to get this tire, and I ended up chatting with these two young women who saw it, showed me where it was in the bushes, and said, yeah, we just saw this tire coming. The reality is my tires on these trucks are probably 70 pounds, 80 pounds. Had that hit someone, it could have been devastating, catastrophic injuries. And certainly had someone been in the bus stop, when this bus stop shattered the glass, it could have been much, much worse. Now, when the wheels fall off, it's quite embarrassing. I had to drive around, park, and sit there on the side of the road with my partner as many people drove by and stared at us going, what the hell? Because you don't often see wheels that aren't on vehicles. Turns out the suspicion was from my shop, from the mechanics that investigated, and my insurance adjuster, that they think someone tried to steal my tires and got to the lock nut, couldn't get it off, gave up, and moved on. Now, I don't know if that's the case. Either way, my tire fell off. When your tire falls off, it does kind of disrupt your plans. I had to arrange someone to come get my trailer that I was towing. I had to arrange someone to come pick me up and take me home back to Ayr. I had to arrange a way to get a vehicle. We had a camping trip coming up, so on and so forth. It was a real inconvenience. The tires falling off my truck was not something I was prepared for, and not something I anticipated, and something that I really don't think will probably ever happen again in my lifetime. I'm very thankful that nothing happened that was worse. It could have been much, much worse. So I'm very grateful that no one was injured, that there was not a lot of property damage. Grand River Transit, I actually called them and said, hey, I broke one of your bus shelters, like, what happens next? And the woman on the phone said, just give me a minute, and came back a few minutes later and said, I don't know what happens next. Usually people call us making claims against us. They never call us saying, how can I pay for the damages? They've never got a hold of me, but I'm pretty sure insurance would take care of it, were they to. In any event, at the end of the day, wheels falling off kind of sucks. This week, metaphorically, the wheels kind of fell off. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. Things that we're not talking about explicitly all the time. So I want to make sure that I offer to you that if you need to chat about the challenges right now with being in school, with being, whether it's, at the end of your program or midway through your program, whatever it is, if you're having struggles with being in school, with dealing with COVID, know that you can always reach out. And also know that there's all sorts of services for you available to you through the university, through the wellness office and so forth. It's going to change my advisor. That's a lot better. But there's also this idea of the wheels falling off of being this unexpected thing. Okay? You don't expect a wheel to fall off. Last week, I had a few things that just kind of arose that all met and created a situation in which I was just completely overwhelmed by everything, like everything. There's been some drama with having a teenage daughter. She'd hate me for saying that, but it's a lot of work to learn how to have a teenage daughter, especially during COVID, when she can't do anything that she wants, and she blames me for that, and or at least it feels that way. My feelings have been hurt a few times. It's difficult having a job with a class that never ends, and you guys know this, right? Like here I am, it's just after 8 a.m, and I'm making a video because I feel like I need to put more content on this site. I want to make sure you guys have what would be equivalent to a full class worth of my time. But at the end of the day, we're all probably doing way more than we normally would have. I've heard from some students that are saying, look, like, I am reading so much, or I am participating so much because of the expectations or the desire. None of us instructors wanted to make you guys do more work. We just wanted to make sure that you didn't lose opportunities through going online. So we're all learning and adjusting this, and it's not been easy. The other thing is, COVID disrupted so many parts of our lives. I remember in May, I was really excited. I had a fantastic team, but my team kept growing. Ended up that I was working with potentially, depending on how you count and who you count, because I have grad students, but like 15 or so students this summer. And it was great. It was fantastic. But I spent most of my summer managing and coordinating, not to mention all the meetings, planning for courses, and so on and so forth. And what happened was that some of the commitments I had made, some of my own deadlines, my own obligations got pushed back. And I kept pushing stuff back because they weren't critical to finish, and I needed to do other things. And so suddenly now, towards the end of September, a bunch of these things became pressing matters. I had to address them. Now, that's not your fault. That's my fault. And that's not an excuse. It's just a reality. Suddenly I became very, very busy. But on top of that, a couple little things happened, and what they are is really not germane, but just little things that just kind of took away whatever little room I had left mentally, emotionally, to deal with the stress of everything that had to go on. And I realized that I had no wiggle room. See, the difference between tires falling off, which is maybe something you can prevent to some extent if you walk around your vehicle every day and torque the lug nuts, but you can't really prepare for your tire falling off. I had no idea my tire was going to fall off. It affected my day and impacted actually several days. It was a real pain in the ass, but I really couldn't prepare for that. I can prepare for wiggle room. A lot of you are about to embark on your own careers, and some of you are maybe a year away from that yet. And so one of the things I thought I'd share with you is that you need to start thinking about what it means to leave yourself wiggle room. So I moved this year to Ayr. That's now why I'm driving. So I drive half an hour each way on the weeks I have my kids, just to get my kids to school. Because that was the decision that my partner and I made to where we wanted to live and where we could afford to live and get the best house possible. And I have no regrets. I have a kick-ass barn. But the reality is that takes up a lot of time. You have to leave wiggle room to be able to accommodate the things in your life. And many of you are going to get into jobs that are really demanding. And possibly some of you will get in them soon, during COVID, during a time where there are no boundaries, there are no hours, there are no stopping points. If we had a class, I would show up at 10:30. I teach to 12:20. And if I wasn't prepared, which I usually am, not always, sometimes things happen, but if I wasn't fully prepared, I could at least get through it, have a conversation, or just be honest and say, I'm not as prepared today as I would like, but here's what we're going to talk about. When you have an online course and you're like, I'm not as prepared as I'd like, you keep thinking, well, I'll just keep preparing. I'll just keep doing more work, or I'll make a better video, and I have ideas about videos. I'm driving by a cornfield right now. I want to do a video in the field and call it a field report. I've spoiled it now, but I have these ideas that just haven't happened. And partly because, life is busy and there's other obligations, but also because my technology hasn't worked out quite the way I want. I can't quite hold my iPad in the air to do a selfie shot in a field, but in any event, I didn't leave a lot of wiggle room this time around. And I've never left wiggle room. I've been in school for a long time. I started my post-secondary education in 1999. And my job is essentially being a student. It's different. I get paid. I set the deadlines, but I still write papers. I still have research to do. I still have to report. I still have a lot of meetings. I still go to class. I'm still learning. And as an undergrad student and a graduate student, I often didn't leave myself wiggle room, but the consequences weren't as stark. And they weren't, no one was relying on me. If I didn't submit a paper and I did poorly, that was on me alone. I rarely did that. You should always hand stuff in if you're able to. But the point is that in the last few months, I didn't leave myself a lot of wiggle room. I didn't leave myself the space I needed for things to go wrong. And I thought I'd share that with you because many of you are about to go into careers where you're going to need to leave yourself room for things to go wrong, because things will go wrong, or family issues will show up, or tires may fall off, or any number of things. So you leave yourself no wiggle room, and then you get into a global pandemic, and then you get into other situations, and suddenly it can become very overwhelming. One of the things I've never ever been good at is scheduling time for just myself. Now, I have colleagues that have other strategies that are even better. Some of my colleagues schedule every morning to write. Some colleagues schedule or have expectations of writing so many words per day. Now, more often than not, the colleagues that do these things either have grown-up kids or no kids. Like with a family of young children, it's difficult. This morning, my routine was getting kids up, making them toast, making them sandwiches, driving them to school, getting home, cleaning out all the shit in my car because of them, and then getting to my day, just to turn around in a few hours and go pick them up. So sometimes life gets in the way. But you need to think about how to schedule yourself some wiggle room, especially right now. Whether or not you're a strong and resilient, capable person or not, whether or not you can handle the stress. I can handle a lot of stress. I'm used to piling on task after task after task. I don't even want to think about how much I took on this year because it can be overwhelming to think about. But on top of everything else that I'm doing, I'm building a house. Now, I'm not doing much of that right now. It's mostly at nights, if at all, and on weekends, and I'm mostly hiring my dad. But I'm still involved in building a house right now. I took on huge projects this year, and I left no wiggle room. And that was a real oversight on my part. So think about wiggle room. What does that mean for you? How do you have wiggle room in your life? And how do you find that space to take care of yourself during a pandemic where everything is overwhelming? So irrespective of whether or not you're resilient, the reality is that this is only going to get harder and harder as we get into darker and darker and colder times. I will soon be getting up and scraping snow off my car, or scraping the windows, or having to heat up my vehicle 15 minutes in advance just so my kids aren't freezing on a cold winter's morning. And that's going to complicate my life even further. So how do I build in wiggle room? I didn't leave any wiggle room for myself. Starting in May, actually maybe even sooner, I had a very, very busy summer with research, with work, with contracts, with student supervision, with moving, with tires falling off. And that has caught up with me eventually. I got through most of it. I haven't been perfect at posting. I'm not someone who wanted to or desired to prepare all my lectures in advance. I suppose I could have, but it's just not, I didn't feel like it'd be advantageous for the courses I was teaching this year. I wanted to engage with you guys on an ongoing basis. And that's taken a lot of time. And it's been very rewarding. I've enjoyed it, but I didn't leave any room. And so last week, a couple of the events crescendoed. There's this culmination of a series of things that left me literally with I had nothing left no space to work in. And I had several nights that were, I've gotten old, and I've paid the price of several 2 o'clock in the morning working nights, which I don't enjoy doing much anymore. Used to be I could stay up all night and work. Now I pay a price for that these days. I guess all I'm trying to say is I'm sorry that I didn't leave room to make sure that I could fulfill my commitments to you guys this past week. And I know for some of you that might have been stressful. But also, here I am. I'm into my 20th or something course teaching. I've got 5 degrees. I'm a university professor. So maybe it's important for you guys also to know that, even when you get there, even when you get to the job, even when you get to the point where you're like, this is what I've been working towards my whole life, my whole career, that you're going to have to be mindful about what it means to leave that space. What does it mean to leave space for yourself? And space for when things don't go right in your job. When things get really busy, how do you leave space? And for those that are going to go into, challenging positions where there's a lot of expectation, it's going to be especially important, because I can promise you it's easy to fill every moment. It's easy to fill your calendar. I could show you my Google Calendar. It's full. It can be full some days where I have no breaks, and I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And I know that this is the experience of my colleagues. I know of colleagues that spend 6-7 hours a day on Zoom calls. How do you get work done if you're on a Zoom call all day long? What does it mean to leave wiggle room? I'm still learning how to figure that one out. What I do know is that I'm sorry that I didn't leave it, and that may have had an impact on some of you. And I know that I need to leave more. And so that's why I'm making a video while I'm driving. This is not ideal, but this is an opportunity where I can sit and chat with you. I'm only a few minutes away from my home, and I'm about to drive through a school zone, so I really need to pay attention. I hope that you guys are doing okay. The reality is, coming up in the next few weeks, months, we're going to start to see some of the pressure of COVID-19 really start to impact individuals, to really start to have its negative consequences. There might start to be cracks. People might not have the same resiliency or the same ability to kind of power through. Know that that's okay. Know that you can take breaks. Know that you are allowed to struggle. You're allowed to not always have things figured out. But also, if I can give you some advice for now and for your career in the future, give yourself some space. So when these moments arise, that you have the room to dig a little deeper if you need to finish a task, i.e. posting content before Thursday. Or alternatively, if you need it, you can take the space for yourself, because you might need it. You might need to recharge. You might need to find space for yourself to be able to do the work you need to do. I'm not trying to be preachy, I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm also trying to provide some context for why my videos weren't up this week on time. I'll do better. I'm not sure I have much wiggle room in the weeks that come, because I've already kind of screwed myself a little bit. But I will ensure that our videos are up in time, and do know the sincere offer that should you need to, for any reason, COVID or not related, that I'm always willing to chat. Most of you have my phone number. You all have my email. Never be afraid to reach out. Okay? I'm almost home, so I'm just going to let this run until I get there and then cut the video, because otherwise, technically it won't be hands-free. Now, all I need to do is push this button, which I can do with my hand, but I'm just going to wait. So thanks for coming on this drive with me. I'm home.